Hello, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about one of the niyamas in yoga. The niyamas in the Yoga Sutras are pretty much like observances, so ideas on how one might conduct themselves. So this one that we're going over today is called santosha, and it is translated to contentment. So to really define this, contentment is just being satisfied with where you are now, not kind of being in the future, not being in the past, just being present with yourself, practicing being in the present moment, not worrying about what you don't have or longing for something else. This practice can help with non-greed, and it can help with anxiety and depression, anything that is caused pretty much by us not being centered in this moment. And through this practice, we can really practice yoga, which is union with the body, mind, spirit, all in one in this present moment. The reason why contentment is so important in a spiritual practice or in growth in general, it's you have to be in the present moment to move from where you are. You can't move from a place where you're not already. So if you're, think about a time where you're feeling anxiety and you're thinking, oh, I'm not here, or what's going, or your mind is kind of in a different place, and it's hard to really take action from that. So it's really important to bring it in, hone it in, and then you can take the best action that it is for you to take at that time. That is why it's important for your spiritual practice, for your spiritual growth, to meet yourself where you are and then continue from there. That's the best way to progress forward on this path according to the Yoga Sutras. When talking about santosha in the Yoga Sutras, it is said that through contentment, unsurpassed joy is attained. So think about it. When you're practicing being always content and in the moment, no matter through life's up and downs, whatever's going on, you're just kind of, okay, like this is where I'm at. You recognize that's where you're at, and you're not shaken by that. Someone who is not shaken by that is not like deterred by the negative things either. So that kind of joy that can come about from that practice, it's said to be completely unsurpassable. Like type of joy that you can attain through this practice is not, you can't surpass it. It's perfect bliss and joy, right? The practice of santosha can also help us with non-attachment, which is another really big theme in the Yoga Sutras, talking about non-attachment, not being attached to material things, even relationships, things of this world. Don't be attached to that because they're not permanent. Um, and there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which I will read to you. In chapter 2, verse 14, Krishna is saying to Arjun, the contact between the senses and the sense objects give rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These are non-permanent and come and go like winter and summer seasons. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So you can gain a lot from that, right? Just think about how everything is not permanent. It's not going to last forever. So not being attached to the good things and also not being too drawn in or really attached to the negative things or having an aversion to the negative things. Just kind of taking the negative things as lessons in your life and taking the positive things as moments that you can enjoy, but don't become so attached to them that once they're gone, then you're stuck in the past again and you're having a depressive episode or having problems like letting that go. Remember, everything is just impermanent, just like how the seasons pass, they come and they go, and then they come again. So think of that. Hopefully that makes you feel good. Um, so ways to really cultivate santosha in your daily life, really practicing mindfulness. So a really simple technique to practice santosha, coming into the moment, really just focus on your breath. Bring awareness to your breath at any time of day. You can just take one deep breath in and out, in and out. And notice how when you bring your attention to the breath, the mind kind of slows down a bit, right? Because your attention is not focused on creating thought. It's focused now on the breath, which normally you don't have to focus on. Normally it just kind of happens to you. And really, when you're outside of this moment, when you're not practicing your santosha and you're kind of all over the place, sometimes that's really happening to you, right? It's really unconscious thought patterns that are just moving through your mind. And to bring attention away from that to the breath, or if you place your hand on your chest, maybe your heartbeat, just close your eyes, contemplate the heart, take deep breaths, and gradually slow the mind and take note of the present moment. And this is something you can do. You can close your eyes and have a full meditation on it. Or if you only have 10 seconds or so, several times throughout the day, just take a deep breath. You don't have to close your eyes, just take a deep breath. Bring your awareness to the breath, moving in through the nostrils, down into your lungs, and then coming back on out. It's such a simple practice. Anybody can do it as long as you're breathing and your heart is beating. You can do one of these things, and it can help slow the mind and bring you into this moment where you are now and help you to really cultivate that sense of gratitude for the moment, to know where you are. This is where I am, and I'm breathing. And that's pretty cool, right? I think it's pretty cool. So, another practice you can do is gratitude. So I personally love gratitude journaling at the end of the night. I will take a page from my journal and I'll fill it all the way up. I'll start with I am grateful for, and then I will add whatever I'm grateful for in that moment, and I will fill the entire page with that. I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for, I'm grateful for. And once you do that, like it's kind of challenging at first, especially if you've had a tough day. It's like, what am I even grateful for? But then you will come up with things like, I'm grateful for air. I'm grateful for the moon. I'm grateful for the stars. I'm grateful for all of these little things that sometimes you might not think about. You might just let them pass by, let them be. Like, oh, of course the moon is there, right? Of course the moon is there. The moon is always there. Um, and sometimes you just don't think of it. And it's a nice thing to be grateful for. The moon, the sun, especially. Imagine if we didn't have the sun. That would be, well, I guess it would be normal for us if we just didn't have it. We would be able to still practice santosha, I think. No, the sun gives us life. We would be completely different. Everything would be so completely different. I can't even fathom. Um, and of course, we can practice santosha in our yoga practice, of course, also. So think of in our asana practice. I personally have very tight hips, and I have for the entire time that I've been practicing yoga. So sometimes when I'm working with the hip openers or hip stretches, I feel like I should be able to fold forward more than I do, but I can't because that's not where my body is at anatomically. So I have to be content with where I'm at in my posture, in where I'm at. And if you try to push it, or if you try to, or if you're worried about, oh no, my posture doesn't look the same way as the teacher or another student, if you're in a classroom, or if you've seen like images on Instagram or something like this, you'll see all these very flexible people doing their super flexible postures. And if you can't get there anatomically, there's no sense in pushing it. It's not going to help, especially if you're talking about the hips like I am right now. The hips do not react well to a lot of pressure. You have to be very gentle and easy with them. Just go to where you're at. Meet yourself where you're at, no matter where that is. And as long as you're in the right position, and if you keep working on it day after day, after day after day, after month after year, then if it's in your anatomical wheelhouse, you'll get there. If it's not, then just be content with that. Not everybody's hips are designed to do gymnastics like we just saw in the Olympics if you were watching those. Um, So it's really important to practice santosha because then you're less likely to injure yourself when practicing yoga. Um, yeah, when you're in the moment, not it's not very common to really injure yourself when practicing yoga, unless you're not in the present moment. So that's why being content with where you are, not trying to push anything, not trying to be like, I'm gonna pull my leg off to the side. Like it's not good. Not even just saying that sentence just does not sound good. So please be mindful in your practice, practicing santosha, being content where you are, meeting your body where it's at. You can also practice santosha in your meditation practice. So when you're meditating, sometimes we get this idea that our mind must be completely still at all times. And if it's not, then we must judge ourselves for not having a perfectly still mind. Meditation really will take years of practice to get down. And it's important to know that any moment of stillness or any moment where you are in that present moment, all of these little brief moments are successful. They are successful and they are cumulative. So every little step that you take towards that stillness of mind, you are taking that step. Even when your mind goes back off to wander off into whatever it is, to-do list, laundry list, he said this, she said that, I have to do this. Something is wrong with my relationships. Anything, whatever your mind wants to bring to the table when you're just sitting there in the corner trying to meditate, don't let it deter you and don't let it cause you to not feel that sense of contentment. You've Practicing that contentment will really help you bring it into that moment more frequently. And I did speak of relationships a bit. So practicing santosha in your relationships. It's important to remember that you can't change what somebody else is doing. All you can change is your reaction to what is happening. So if you're having a troublesome time in your relationships, whether it's a working relationship or an intimate relationship, whatever it is, just bring your mind back into who you are. Like, make sure you're focused on who you are and who you're trying to express yourself as, and how you're trying to respect the people around you, how you want them to view you, in a way, right? And just bring in that contentedness in who you are. You know who you are, you know how you want to react to what's going on. And that should help with the relationships, whether they're challenging or whatever is going on. And just remember, you can only change here. You can only change you and the way that you react, the way that you respond. If you're having a real challenge, maybe take one of those deep breaths that I was speaking of earlier. Um, Maybe step outside, take a breath of air. Um, if it's like a workplace relationship, you can just remember to focus on what you're doing, like focus on the task at hand. Make sure that the task at hand is getting accomplished and you're not like going backwards on something or unable to solve a problem, and just continue forward, just breathe, know who you are, be content with who you are, and try to broadcast that to those around you. So hopefully that helps as well. The biggest challenge in practicing santosha would be that you're not where you want to be, right? You have goals and ambitions and you're like not there yet. And you see that ahead of you and you're like, I know what I want. It's that. And you're not there yet. And that causes frustration. So then you don't know, you get stuck in thinking of what that is instead of thinking of where you are and what the next step would be to get there. So bringing yourself back in is really important in that case. And just knowing that you're always going to be in that state of not being quite where you want to be. Because once you, like, say you have like a, 5-year plan or whatever, you know where you want to be in 5 years. But even once you get to that point, then you have another plan. Your plans have evolved as you have to get to that point. So there's always this gap of where you are and where you want to be. And that's just always going to be there. And you just have to meet yourself where you're at. Always, 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 always. It's so like, this is just so wonderful. Like, it seems so simple, right? Contentment, but you can just so deeply think of it in different ways and just be like, yeah, you know what? Contentment is pretty good. It's a pretty good idea. So I'm grateful for that. And it's important also to know that contentment is not complacency. Contentment is just a place from where you can move forward and grow. So don't be like, okay, this is where I am. This is where I'm going to stay forever. That's not what I mean, or what I can see from this contentedness, um, Niyama. It's just the place where you are now and where you can move forward from here. So for me, when I'm struggling with santosha, it's almost always this feeling of not being where I want to be. And for me, this always causes stagnation, which doesn't seem to make sense to me. It seems like, oh, well, if I'm worried about where I want to be, wouldn't I move forward? I don't know exactly how it happens, but I'll stagnate. I'll stop doing anything, and I just get stuck, and I'm just in this mental anxiety loop, and I can't get my next thing accomplished. So I have to remind myself, even myself, to come back to the moment, to come back to my practice and really practice meeting myself where I am so I can take another step forward. And I really encourage you to reflect on your own experiences with this, with like contentment or being discontented, right? If you are feeling like you're not particularly content with the way your life is going or with a particular situation that's happening now, just maybe write about it all out in your journal. Like air out your grievances to yourself. And then once you do that, like write as much as you can, be as detailed as possible, write it to yourself. You're not writing it to anybody else. And just write it out. And then when you go back through it, go over it and look and see what about this is not permanent. What of this is going to pass like the seasons, like winter, summer, and maybe take a different pen and like circle those parts that you point out and maybe just look at it and say, okay, this is going to pass. And also think, how else can I think about this situation? And maybe write about that in the other pen, right? Just write about that, a different way to think about it. And just reflect, maybe go into a meditation, do some deep breathing, put your hands on your heart, all these practices that I was just talking about, and just come into where you are now and try to show yourself some gratitude for being where you are now. And then you can take steps forward from there in whatever situation you're in. I hope this video has helped you in some way. Please leave a comment if you like these type of videos. I really enjoy studying these Yoga Sutras and sharing them because talking about them really helps me to understand them better as well as hopefully you. So if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Let me know how these videos are going for you. And I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe as well. And I'll see you soon. Namaste.